If you're an average player, you want to be left alone, right? Because you want to be able to slide by. If you're a good player, you want to be coached. If you're a great player, you want the coach to tell you the truth every day. Did I hustle on that play? Did I make the right read? Did I play the guy with the right leverage? You want to know every play. Because you know why? They want to be perfect. Everybody here makes a choice to do one of those three things.
Welcome to the GOAT Consulting Podcast, a podcast dedicated to people striving to be a GOAT, the greatest of all time, serving it up in a way that you can get it in all stages of life. Hey, I'm Colby Jubenville, and welcome to another episode of the GOAT Consulting Podcast right here in VCE Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Always at the table, my good friends. To the right, the founder and CEO of the GOAT family of brands, the GOAT Empire, the GOAT clothing line. The list keeps going. My good friend Tyler Burnett.
Good to be.
Tyler, what's next on the list?
The Emperor.
The Emperor, from the Empire to the Emperor.
Yeah.
And to your left, wearing the shirt that says, "Don't tell your mother." Maybe some foreshadowing there. Look forward to hearing more about that.
Yes.
All the way from Brentwood, we call him the LinkedIn Whisperer. He is the calming force to the show by taking tensions and asking the right questions to get to a place that's
We'll
a little
talk
bit
more about
better.
that today, actually.
We will talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Yes, we will.
And so much more.
We're
gonna talk about something called assumptions. But before we do that, let's always set the stage by number one, we serve it up in the way that you can get it. We're like Waffle House, serving up the way that you can get it. Number two,
Have you seen the new menu yet?
you told me about it. You said it's short and abbreviated.
It's abbreviated. You haven't seen it yet.
I mean, everything.
Let's make a trip there after the next.
Everything in life gets shorter and shorter. In our 20s, they teach us to get in the game. 30s, they teach us to move up in the game. 40s, don't tell your mother, try to stay in the game. 50s, we finally ask ourselves, what is it that I really want? Y'all can't pull me off track. I am so focused on what I'm doing
Just
today.
Go with it.
In sports, the GOAT is easy to see. They're all right here in the GOAT clothing line. But in sports, it's people that are recognized for their greatness. What they do elevates everyone else around them. In business, it's people that compete on unique perspective, unique education, and unique experience. What they do gives them energy. It gives other people energy, creates new levels of challenge and new levels of opportunity.
And we didn't make assumptions when we had the world and business after business calling us to want to sponsor the show. We didn't assume they were going to be the right partner. We wanted the right partner.
Well, I want to say a little bit differently. We wanted the home team.
We wanted the home team.
And we did get the home team with Brian Huddleston and Dev Digital. They give their
Such
people,
good folks.
They give their people, their employees, the freedom to build, and then they give the people that they work with the freedom to build. And what I think they do is just give Nashville energy.
Yeah, I read this quote on their website, which I love. It says, "Results don't happen by luck. They happen through experience, diligence, and hard work."
And we just had him on the show, so that's great. And if
Outlines the show.
If that doesn't speak to who Brian Huddleston is, all the way from Year, Tennessee.
Yes.
Had a little stop at Charlie's Quick Mart, all the way to Murray,
some
Kentucky, all the way to Nashville, Tennessee from Year. So if that doesn't explain who he is or the vision or what they're trying to accomplish, I don't think anything does. We're certainly appreciative of their support and commitment to the GOAT Consulting Podcast and how they use it in a way to develop their people. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dev.
No assumptions there. We just appreciate the opportunity and relationship, right?
Let's talk about assumptions.
Let's do it.
Why do what's the deal with assumptions? Like, why are they bad?
This sounds like a Seinfeld episode.
Yeah. What's the deal?
What's the deal
with assumptions?
What's the deal with assumptions?
I think they create. Here's the first thing I wrote when I wrote down assumptions. They create deficits in our relationships and our business.
Yep.
Unknown deficits because we're assuming something that we have no idea.
That's really good. Deficits in business and relationships. Yes, I think they lead us down a path that's negative. I think that they're based on insecurities. And one of the things that I've always said and believe is be open to the opportunity. Be open to the meeting. If you don't go take the meeting, you're never going to find out what the opportunity may present. You had that happen here recently when you asked a couple of guys that were installing turf over in Memphis to come over. Mm-hmm. We talked about it. You invested in them. It took about 6 months to get them to a place where they finally saw that you could help them in ways that nobody else could. And I said, so what finally turned that opportunity, that challenge, that frustration, because you were frustrated in the beginning because it wasn't going the way that you were going, that what you wanted to go. What turned the corner on that? And you said, I remember you said it because we were on the Sprinter. It was raining. And you said
every day.
every day, and you said they finally started to see that I could help them in new ways, in different ways.
Yeah, it's
Instead of assuming,
I'm trying to think of the best way to go with this, but they assumed
that you were just there to help yourself.
they assumed that I just wanted to sell them product.
That's right. That's the way you said it. To sell
And
product.
do I want to sell them product? Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm very vulnerable about that. Yes, that's how I'm
you
going to
make
make money.
Right.
And I'm a for-profit business.
Yeah.
But I want you to win, and I want to win too.
Be a partner.
Yep. And so the biggest thing they couldn't get behind is that my materials were more expensive.
Yep.
And so, it's hard to quantify the value until you see it and you install it, and you put your hands on it, and you do business with them, and then
Customer tells you how much they love it.
well, the biggest thing that there's a bigger guy in town. There's a bigger fish in town, and he went to a job and quoted the job, and then they went there and quoted, and the guy was like, "Yeah, you're about 7% higher."
Mm-hmm.
And the guy said, "I got a piece of their turf. I got a sample of their turf." They said, "Great, we got one too." He's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that I had a sample of their turf." And they said, "No, it's good. Why don't you compare them side by side?"
Yeah, there goes.
And when they did that, the guy goes, "Oh my God, I can't imagine if I spent this much money and saved 7%."
To your point on assumptions.
Yeah.
So
Right there.
they assumed that people wanted to spend less money, but it's not necessarily that people want to spend less money.
Yeah.
A lot of people just want what they want, and that's why they drive BMWs.
Well,
or Cadillacs.
What I
or-
believe is people, when they buy stuff, they want to feel good about it.
Sure.
You don't want to buy something and not feel good about it.
For sure.
Especially when it's 7% more, whatever that cost is,
Yeah.
right? I mean, obviously there's a diminishing return, but to that point, here's one of the ways I connect with assumptions. I have always prided myself, I don't like saying it that way, but I've always been a good, in my own opinion, very good gift giver. And I love to give.
Is
gifts.
that a?
Oh, is that the peanuts that they gave us on the table?
Is that
Yes,
a
you're
home
welcome.
like maybe you haven't got the gift that you
All right,
wanted? Or?
don't miss the point here. Don't miss the point.
Okay.
So I will give, in my own view, Vanessa really fantastic gifts during Christmas or birthdays or anniversaries or whatever. And she doesn't listen to our podcast, so she's not going to contest this. So I will say that I was very excited about one of the Christmas gifts from last year. And 2020, we've talked about this actually on the podcast before. There was a Netflix show called The Queen's Gambit, and it was a chess show. And it's one of the greatest Netflix shows. In fact, I think it was the most popular Netflix created show of all time, at least at the time. Yep. And a great show, and we loved it. One of our favorite things of 2020. And for Christmas, I thought, ooh, I'm going to get Vanessa a chess board, and then we will so sweetly learn how to play chess together.
Yeah.
And
it's a great assumption.
It'll be she will love this because it's thoughtful and it's kind, and it will promote, us learning something new together. And it'll be, she will just cheer me on for this great gift. Well, my goat for this episode is the worst Christmas gift response that I have ever received from Vanessa, and it was when I gifted her with that chess set.
I believe that. What was her response?
She almost left me. Probably not, but it was one of the worst, maybe the worst gift according to her, that I have ever given her, because she said, you assumed that I was going to want to learn how to play chess, and at the end of the day, I'm like, just want to talk and hang out, and I don't want to play chess. So, well, then we could play while we're having coffee in the morning.
So you
She
saw
said
the
no.
chess board as a way to hang out in a different way, and she saw it as a way to learn how to play chess that she did not want to learn how to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more to this conversation, but I think I assumed it was going to be something that it was not. I assumed she was going to like it in a way that she clearly didn't.
So when you write in here in the show notes, how have I derailed our relationship, and what do I need to do to fix it? Number one is, do not give people chessboards.
That
you're in a relationship
That is number one and number two on the list. C.
No.
Number 2 is C number 1.
No, no, no chessboards.
Yes.
Okay, I can learn from that.
What about light up pens?
I
Are
can
they
get
on the
behind
list?
that.
I'm very intrigued. Every time Colby writes, the pen lights
Well,
up.
VCE. I mean,
Correct.
y'all may know about them. VCE, investigative. This is different than VCE Productions. They're a global brand.
They are.
So that actually came from a client that I'm doing some consulting with, and I saw that, and I was so intrigued by the light. He said, "You can have that." So I take
took it.
But you know, there's some really easy practicals that help us to keep us from assuming. Tyler, you talked about it when the guy just physically looked at, okay, how can I tell the difference between these two products? Sometimes you can't do it by just telling a story, right? Sometimes you have to see, you have to feel it. But one of the ways that I feel like I could have prevented that whole disaster that almost derailed the rest of my life and my marriage, just asking the question.
Do you?
Would you ever like to play chess together
Well,
and learn this game? She probably would have said, "Hell no."
I just think even asking that in my
whoever
mind,
says that,
if
unless
you-
you're from Russia,
or another Eastern Bloc country.
yeah. I mean, so learn from my mistakes. And by the way,
This is not saying that we're beating up on chess because there's such a rich history.
I don't know how to play, and I want to learn how to play just to challenge
don't.
myself with something new.
I don't.
But not everybody is in that boat.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Apparently,
Yeah.
Vanessa.
But here's the takeaway from that for me.
Yep.
Goats are striving to become masterful question askers.
And you
This
are.
is very, very practical. One takeaway from me from this episode as we combat assumptions, it's become masterful at asking questions, even the questions that are scary that may take us out of what's comfortable for us or what we may want or desire if we're trying to do something for somebody else. We got to ask really good questions.
And that's been a constant theme seen throughout the shows and how you build business relationships is that you do ask questions. And sometimes those questions can lead to answers that are painful to hear, but it gets to a place of better opportunity.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. In fact, I will share one of the questions that I have really enjoyed, and it's scary, but I've really enjoyed asking potential clients when we get to the 1 yard line, I might say, on doing some work together, is I like to ask them, let's just say Ben is who I'm talking to,
Yeah.
to protect the
Ben.
innocent.
Yep.
Ben, let's assume that 2 weeks down the road, you call me and you say, John, you're the greatest guy I've ever met, and we are going to hire a different firm.
Yes.
And not that you would owe me anything, Ben, but what might be the reasons that you would share with me that would be the case?
All right, put a pause right there. Has that happened?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I ask it every time.
And so tell me what happens.
So first of all, there's a couple consistencies.
Okay.
One of them is every time I've asked it, they say, "Wow, what a great question." That's the first response. Every time, 100% of the time, that's the response. Then they go on to tell me all the things in their own head that might keep the relationship from occurring, a working relationship from occurring. They will actually tell me whatever objections that they're thinking of. Then it allows us to actually figure out if they're real objections or not. But we have to have a conversation about it. So, for example, 2 weeks ago, I asked the question, and the guy...
Walk me through what you said to him.
So I said, Ben, let's assume 2 weeks from now that you call me, you're the greatest guy in the world, but we're going to hire a different firm. Tell me the reasons why. The first thing he said, now keep in mind, they are a $12 billion company with roughly 1,500 employees. And he said, and publicly traded.
Oh, wow.
And he said, I think that Lockton might be too big for us.
Bizarre.
And I said, Ben, that would have, if you'd asked me to put a top 10 list, it wouldn't have been anywhere near there.
No.
But it was what was in his head.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to say, and you know what I said? Okay, is that a true objection? Because let's talk about it. If it is, and let's validate it. And if not, let's unpack that too.
Yeah.
Right. But it allowed us to have a meaningful conversation where I wasn't assuming, and I wasn't assuming the win. Right. I mean, people say, assume the close, no way.
Yeah.
I assume we're not going to win. Let's talk about those things. And maybe it makes sense. Maybe, again, they're true objections that we need to validate. And then we both decide that another question I like to,
Well, hold on. Let's do
No,
that.
whoa, don't go. I like it. I like where you're
this is
going.
interesting.
Don't shut it down.
Do they find themselves tell us the second question once we get this answered.
Yeah.
Do they find them? Do you find them when you ask that question? Do you find them to be uncomfortable? Do you find them to turn their head and look at you like, why would you ask me that question? Or
Absolutely.
do you?
I would think so.
Yeah, I do. I would too.
I haven't sensed that response yet.
I think what all your competition's doing is saying why they're the best.
100%. Because
All
I've
the
been
time.
there. And the response is, here's who we are as the potential company that you could hire. Here's why we're the best, and here's why you need to hire us. And so my response is very different to that. In fact, one of the questions that tends to get a good head tilt from these kinds of conversations is I say, do you really need to make a change from your current partner? And they say, what do you mean? What do you mean do I need to That's why you're here.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, do you really? I mean, that's a painful task. Like,
Yeah.
have you thought about what's it going to look like when you call them to fire them? Have you thought about that? Because maybe that could be painful. How long's the relationship been? I got a client we started working with last year who had an 84-year relationship with their firm. So I said, let's talk about what it's going to look like when you call them.
I'm just curious what their response was.
To the question around, do you really need to make a change?
No, what's it going to be like when you call them? In
Well,
general terms, I mean,
the interesting thing is there tends to be a long pause because they're not thinking about it.
Right.
But I've been on the side where
you've been on both sides.
I've been on the side where I'm going to assume you're going to hire me so that everything's just easy.
And
It's not easy.
And you've been on the side where you assume they're just going to stay with
Yeah.
who they're going to stay with. So you ask them that question, what's that phone call going to be like? I mean,
Yeah.
I think this is a great teaching tool for people to think about sales in a different way. I love the question. Let's assume that you don't choose us. Why? Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
They're going to tell you if it's price. They're going to tell you if it's trust. They're going to tell you if it's probably whatever. But I do the same kind of thing in a different way. But I think every other competitor probably says, we got the best product, and their product is like this, and this is why it's like that. I simply say, what are you trying to accomplish? And then when they tell me, I'll say, well, this is what I heard you say. What matters most to you?
Yeah.
Is this what matters most? So it's the same thing probably earlier in the process, right? And then maybe we could go into that.
Well,
and yours is a longer process than mine.
It's still asking questions.
But it's still,
And removing
I
assumptions.
But I used to do the same thing like you said. I used to say, oh, you should
It's
choose
just
us.
price.
We got the best team. We got this.
Yeah.
And we're going to be the cheapest. And
Yeah.
And I might encourage you, because I just recently did this. I challenged myself on this. I might encourage you to think about this, because one of the things I would always do after a meeting is I would say, here's what I heard you say. Is that right? Here's what I changed about that. I said, what did you hear today that you found value in?
Oh, yeah.
Then I let them tell me, did we miss anything here? Because I found, like, as opposed to assuming I heard you say this, right? I ask them to just go ahead and share it. And I have found that creates 50% of the time, I'll put it this way, they tell me something that I had not had in my notes that I had not heard them say.
So what
50% of the time.
What did you hear me say, and what did you find value in?
Not necessarily what did you hear me say, but what did you find value in our conversation today?
Okay.
And then I just let them tell me.
And then they're telling you how they want to be sold to.
Well, they're telling me what was valuable, right? What was important, and what
matters most.
What we might need to have more conversation about, right?
Yeah.
Rather than assume I heard what they said, because I've challenged myself on this very thing, like you said, right? Rather than assume I heard what they say and that's what they were value, I just ask them to tell me.
Well, and I think you open up a whole other line of communication too. when you just constantly sit there and tell them why you're the best, you never give them a chance to open up. And then
because
2
maybe
weeks,
I'm not the best for them.
and then 2 weeks later, you get the phone call, hey, we're not going with you. Or you don't even get a call. It just goes somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably because the line of communication maybe wasn't open enough.
So let's role play this. So John, let's just pretend I listen to the podcast and we have somebody that calls into the show. Hey John, I've heard what you said about assumptions and that part and how we build relationships and sales, and I want to try this, but I'm nervous about it. So I'm thinking about doing this in my first call, my first meeting with my potential client. Where's the best place to start? What are the 3 questions that I need to be able to unpack during this time together, or is it just one question? Is it the first meeting? Is it the second meeting? I believe you. I think what you're saying is right. It's just so scary to me that I don't think I can do it.
Well, first of all, I would say if you're not scared, then you're not doing it right.
There you go.
Because it's scary. It's scary asking the question because you might get an answer that you may not necessarily want to hear. Mm-hmm. But yes, you do want to hear it because you'd much rather hear it now than after time, effort, and all this work might have been gone into a potential relationship that was never really going to happen anyways.
Yeah.
Ask the hard questions right up front. Questions like, do you really need to make a change? Let's talk about that.
When every other person tries to make a change. I mean, I've got an insurance
You're
guy.
going in there trying to make a change.
I got an insurance guy calling me right now once a week, and I'm like, dude,
I'm not changing.
You have not intrigued me whatsoever. All you keep saying is, can I take you to lunch? Dude, everybody says, can I take you to lunch? No, my time is valuable.
I was in a meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean,
and this person said, can you just share your elevator pitch? I said, no, I don't do that. I don't do that. Do you really need to be making a change right now? Like, why'd you have me all the way out here?
Number one, we're not an elevator, and then number 2, I'm not here to pitch anything to you. I'm here to learn, right?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to, I know we've talked about this, right? Like, I'm not here to convince you why you need, to make a change. I'm here to talk about, one, is that even necessary? And who the right partner might be, even if it's not me.
Partly because you've probably asked yourself over time, what business am I in? And what business should I be in, and who is the right customer for me? And because
that's what's happening.
You can't run a successful company with the wrong customers.
Yeah.
You have to understand your unique proposition, your value, and then you have to understand that money changes hands when problems are solved, and then you have to solve the right problem for the right customer. And that's the thing that I chased the whole time. I mean, I chased homeowner after homeowner after homeowner. And when you really look back and you think about the scalability and the longevity of the company, you look and you're like going, well, Sue was an awesome customer, and she might give me a referral or 2 or 3 maybe.
Yeah.
That's it. And not that that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. You got to have those kind of customers. But the best customers for me that I've realized over time are the landscape architects and the custom pool builders and the designers and custom home builders, etc. And those people send me one job a month for the next 10 years, next 20 years.
Because most of the assumptions are removed, if not all, because they have to be. It's part of the process.
Well, and they're the best. They're the best at what they do for a reason, is because they're not scared to hear new products and new opportunities and whatever the case may be. So that's one way we've shifted a lot. I know is that I assumed when I first got into this business that I was going to do putting greens for homeowners. That's all I was. And then I assumed after that I was going to do pet backyards and landscaping turf and that. And then I assumed that I was going to do some commercial projects with it, right? And then I assumed, well, I can do rooftops and stuff too. But then when I realized now even more than that is that's not just what I want to do. I want to do it in Memphis. I want to do it in Jackson. I want to do it in Nashville. Yeah. I want to do it in Murfreesboro. I want to do it in Lebanon. I want to do it in Knoxville. I want to do it in Hattiesburg. I want to do it in Pensacola and Orange Beach and Destin and Tallahassee and all those areas that I have.
Don't forget Mobile.
And Mobile.
Thank you.
God. So and again, just a final thought for me on this is, and again, reiterating the takeaway. When I start to feel in myself, when I am thinking about a relationship, a business, fill in the blank, and I start to say things like, I think this person,
Yeah.
or I think they feel, or I think they might want, that's a pause for me, and I need to ask a question. There's an assumption there that I'm leaning into, that I got to pump the brakes, and I got to ask a hard question regardless of my fear around what the answer might be.
I love that.
Love it.
I'm assuming that you have a goat for today.
But the goat was my god-awful
The
Christmas chess gift.
Okay.
Yeah, the worst of all time.
I'm going to just go ahead and put this out for the audience. I tried to think of a goat for today.
I don't
And
know.
I
I
assumed,
was wrong.
I don't know. I was wrong. And
you need
John,
help.
I need help.
Yeah.
So, can you help me with?
I had 3 goats, but I'm not going to tell the others because they're going to go to a future episode.
Oh, wow.
This is okay. Well, I just want to go ahead and apologize to the international audience today to say that I came in assuming that I was going to have a goat. I was really struggling with this topic, and to be honest, I can't stand when people say that. I don't want to say that. This was one of the best episodes that we've done. I think there are practical takeaways. So, is there a better question to ask when you're new to this? When you're just trying to shift your sales approach from saying we're the best, here's my elevator pitch, to I'm going to ask questions and assume nothing? Should you ever assume anything?
I would just here is the compass. Ask the questions you're afraid to ask.
Ask the
Yes,
questions
and
you're afraid to ask.
it changes from being a salesperson to being a partner
Change.
because
100%.
both parties win.
You move from being tactical to strategic.
Yes. And my goat's going to be Deming for this episode.
God, you're so coachable. Golly, that's
and for so many reasons. You know, one thing I thought about,
that's awesome.
and one thing I thought about just today.
That is
That's
so
something
good.
from Deming.
Yeah, say it.
Is build it into the process to where it's hard to fail. Right.
Yes.
Don't put in countermeasures that are outside of the process.
Well, you know,
One thing we need to do is not have your phone keeps going black, right? Because our timer. We just need a timer.
We do.
Just build it in the process and do it right. Instead of keep hitting your phone, quit hitting your phone.
building a better experience.
Building a
I
better.
know.
You know what, Deming? He is absolutely right. We watched the Deming film together. The Deming film, I watched it as a student in the 1990s. God, I feel old in a course called Systems Thinking and Learning. And at the front of that movie, the very first thing that punched me in the mouth, he said this: "Without theories, there are no questions, and without questions, there is no learning."
And without that, you make assumptions.
Amen.
And I think this has been one of the best episodes too, because I think I'm going to say another goat. I'm going to go a goat for you today.
Yeah.
Is the podcast.
Yes.
And for me, it's because I get to see it in different lights, right? I get to hear it from my perspective and 40s and 50s, and then the guests and all the different roles and what they do. And this really helps me learn and take this back to my company.
Yep.
So I love that. Thank you guys for that.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Thank you. It's a new level of mastery. We hope that you'll step in, and when it's time to sell, instead of telling people why you're the best, we hope that you'll ask questions and make no assumptions. And when you do and you feel scary, then you know that's right where you are. For Tyler and for the GOAT Consulting Podcast, and for my friend John, I'm Colby Jubenville. Thank you for joining us, GOAT Consulting Podcast.
Boom.